Well, the book, that's a book that I've written that was just published, about 6 months ago, and it's published by the same publisher, Progressive Press, who published my first book, Corporatism: Secret Government of the New World Order. And it's really it was a chapter in the book Corporatism, but it got so huge, it was almost the size of its own book. So I just made a real short summary of it and put it in Corporatism, and then expanded it out to its own book. And people are a little bit happier than I expected, or than I thought that it would be. The book is really just on one topic, just the destruction of consciousness. And so it's not like Corporatism, which is, all over the place, talking about chemtrails 1 minute and concentration camps the next minute and so forth. But the TeleScreen is, it's the idea of what a TeleScreen is comes from Orwell. That's from Orwell's book, 1984, where everybody is walking around and there are TVs talking to them that can talk, and they can talk back to them. It's sort of like a phone TV, and they call them telescreens. And they monitor everybody and entertain everybody and keep everybody from being able to think, because they're always thinking. The telescreen's always pumping out information loudly, like freedom is slavery, and so all these little mantras and so forth. So nobody can really think because they always have their thoughts imbued with all this propagandistic information. And so what I've tried to do in this book is basically show how that's exactly what our culture is. Now, it's, a lot of people say, no, that doesn't make sense. We don't have televisions that talk back and all this kind of stuff. Yeah, there are variations, but for example, I was just at the post office mailing off some DVDs and so forth to customers, and they, I'm in the post office and there's a TV in there, playing CNN. So, I can't just sit there with my daughter and talk to her, just think our own thoughts and talk about whatever we want to talk about. No, we've got to sit here and try to tune out this horrible, pathetic CNN playing TV. And we, so our thoughts it's literally an invasion. Our thoughts are what we are, our consciousness and our feelings, and the deep spiritual core of our thoughts and feelings is called our soul, right at the base of all that. And these things are being utterly invaded at all times, so that means ourselves are being utterly invaded at all times. And people don't even know this. They think is there a new world order that's invading us, and are we under attack? Give me a break. Nobody can even think straight. We don't even have our humanity, and our souls are totally hijacked by all these crazy ways we act and so forth. With coming home from work and just sitting in front of ESPN for 6 hours with beer. We're half conscious. Just imagine people sitting on their couches drooling and so forth. And then we go back to our jobs that we don't even, they despiritualize us every day, and it's just an amazing phenomenon. It's all run by this telescreen world where there's TVs everywhere, inundating consciousness. It's radio, it's billboards, it's film, cinema, magazines, even books these days are just, everything is just this streamlined information. Even at church, like one of these big money churches, which is not really a church in the biblical sense. It's just a big propaganda mill, and somebody, some rich minister up there misinterpreting the whole Bible and leaving out key verses like Colossians 3:11 or Genesis 1:26 or something, or Genesis 2:7, which has now become my favorite verse in the whole Bible. So this function of a church basically is just to agree with everything that's on TV. And what's on TV is basically, a lot of people think, it's all this different information. But no, it's really one streamlined message that war is okay, that history is filled with chaos and madness and hell, for people, and murder. And that's what people really, so we get the idea in our heads, that's what we kind of really are. That's the way people are. So if we want to go and slaughter children in Pakistan or Iraq or something, well, that's just kind of normal. And if we pay for it with our tax dollars, well, that's just what's always happened. So I can go back to watching my ESPN right now and not worry about it. So, we get all these ideologies pumped into us, and the churches totally agree with it. So they, for all intents and purposes, function like a telescreen. And what happens is everybody goes around, they hear all these ideas, the same ideas on, there's little variations. Like some people are, pro-gay, and some people are against gay marriage, so there's little variations, so it seems like there's differences. But really that's all just, completely ridiculous. I give all these examples in my book, The TeleScreen, about how there aren't variations. I say, when's the last time you heard people in church or on the mass media or something question all these ideas? I've got a big long list of them, So it's really a way, the telescreen is a way of capturing, invading, capturing, and hijacking everybody's consciousness to make sure it just is consumed with certain streamlined bits of information, all while nobody knows this is happening. And then the churches agree, the universities agree, and everybody agrees, and so then everybody goes to work and they talk about all the same things that they all agree on. So just like in Orwell's book, everybody is told the lie over and over, and then they go around and tell each other the lie, so nobody knows that the lie is not even the truth. So that is our world right now. This is just an introduction to the idea. It's a very detailed concept. It goes far deeper than I think hardly anybody imagines. And that's what I discuss in the book, The TeleScreen. I mean, your inner consciousness is being invaded right as we speak on this, this very day when you just walk around all over the place, talking to, if you just talk to your neighbor, they'll inundate you with certain ideas in the conversation without you even knowing it. But those ideas are influenced dramatically by the telescreen world, the TV megaplex, which is ultimately controlled by the Illuminati all the way up the chain. So there you go.
I just love on the back cover, you got these two kids. Well, first, hold on. First, I'm just going to read the
sure
to the audience what the book is. And you just explained it too, but the telescreen is the pervasive media screen put in front of you and ejected into the eyes and ears of humans into the American electronic techno-culture. This begins from birth and creates consciousness throughout life. But the consciousness created is not a genuine human consciousness, but rather is a less than human despiritualized semi-consciousness. But I love the picture. You got the bunny from Tricks on a widescreen TV.
Yeah.
Two kids are sitting in front of it, kind of like hypnotized. And
the little girl there is looking away from her toys. She's got toys, and one of the two little girls is really young, and she's got toys in front of her. She's not even playing with them. She's just staring at the TV.
But that's exactly how we are now. It's like we are raised. Even I was raised. Every Friday, Saturday, and Sunday, like even after school, before school, I would watch cartoons and I would play video games. Like, what kind of culture is that? When you're raised from birth until your teenage years, all you do is watch all these radical movies, these radical cartoons, and you play all these mind-altering video games, and you where is, I guess what I'm trying to say, where are we going as a society? Because as the way it looks now, it doesn't seem like it's going to be going very much further.
Yeah, well, we're going backwards, of course. It's funny, we go to the universities and they say humanity is progressing from the apes to, wherever we're going, to the space age or something. Of course, the whole evolution thing is a farce, but the thing is, we're going backwards. Actually, our vocabularies are shrinking, and and yet the universities tell us all this non-empirical garbage that we're advancing so much. Children's IQ, just go look up on Google. Children's IQ levels, they're absolutely plummeting. I mean, and it's unbelievable. And there's probably more than just the telescreen to blame for that. It's probably, equally as much all the food and Prozac and parents ignoring them and so forth. A lot of parents in where I live in West Lafayette, Indiana, Purdue University. There's professors live all over the place. I used to teach there. And, all these parents are absolutely clueless to everything going on around them. I've got one of my wife's friends, there is a professor and his wife, and they have their kids play video games all day long. And these are the grumpiest, most horrible kids. I mean, horrible just because of what they've been created, not genuinely horrible in themselves, but they're just horrific. You can't even talk to them, and the parents actually think that the video games are good for them. They say, oh, it's helping their intelligence. All you need to do is go talk to an anthropologist. I got my undergrad degree is in anthropology, one of the few degrees that does have a little bit of good information in it. There's only a couple in the universities that have any little bits, like astronomy, anthropology has a little, and so forth. But it was just well known in anthropology that children's intelligence levels are determined by two things. Nutrition and social interaction are the two major things that determine children's intelligence. So the more social interactions children have when they're very, very, from really in the womb until 8 or something, is their interaction with their other people, especially their parents. And not, I'm not talking about some hostile interaction, just like talking about stuff. Like, oh, look, there's the tree. What does the tree mean? Oh, there's a bunny hopping around. Why is it running around? Just little simple kid stuff like that. That's what builds intelligence. But people in the country, I think, overall have this idea that, oh, kids are smarter these days because of, TV's teaching them all this stuff, or video games are. All you need to do is just look at all the IQ levels and so forth of children. It's absolutely plummeting. But the news won't cover that. They just talk about all this other stupid stuff, and it's hardly even, discussed much. And if you talk to old women, like somebody's grandma or something, say, sit them down and just get them and say, hey, are kids smarter now than they used to be? Really think about it. Don't just, really think back. And I've done this with several of them. They say, no, the kids are different these days. They're something, well, especially with, and they'll say something like, especially with a lot of these kids over, not all of them, but, some kids are just really not what, it used to be. And so yeah, I mean, as a culture overall, we are, I think, like Michael Cremo would say, we're devolving. And that's really it. It's right in front of our eyes, and we all know it. I mean, everybody knows that, people will say things like, well, television influences, our opinions and so forth, and we need to have good media reporting so we can have the right ideas. They're admitting right there when people say that in their ordinary discourse that TV is brainwashing them, because they're saying, that's just a nice perfumed way of saying that your consciousness is being having ideas planted into it to think certain things on certain views, big stuff like, how am I going to, react to the war or something like that. So we all know it deep down. We're just too lazy and addicted. The TV lifestyle is an addiction life, as I discuss in detail in almost like corporatism in the TeleScreen. And this is one of our main problems. When people are addicted, they lose all sense of rationality, and they lose track of the things that normally people are concerned with, like their families, or taking care of themselves, or planting a garden for food or something, anything. And when you have a life of addiction, people can't even go to Slave Mart to pick up some more DVDs or something without being jittery and nervous and thinking, I got to get home to relax. I mean, I've been working all week and now I want to just go home and relax. I mean, our life is totally dominated by work and addiction, the addiction after work being, beer and ESPN and so forth. And people aren't even thinking about this because everybody's doing it, so it seems normal. You go talk to the average psychologist, and what they do is base, psychological health on what is, quote, normal, unquote, in the eyes of society. So if you've got a diseased and horrific society, a warmongering, brainwashed society, well then normality in the eyes of the professional psychologist is a diseased, warmongering, brainwashed person. So it's very disturbing what's going this thing we're caught in.
Now, when I was being raised up in the 90s, I have to tell you that I was, I guess you can say, that little kid on the back of the TeleScreen book.
Yeah,
like,
me too.
I watched all these cartoons, and I played all these video games. I would literally, during the summertime, I would play video games and watch TV all day. I would not go outside, Jeff. I would watch video games and watch TV all day and eat candy and chocolate and sodas and everything like that. I would not, and whenever you step outside, you're like, wow, air, what's that? Like, I want to go back inside, and but the thing is, it's still not I guess you can say it's not an excuse, because everybody can wake up. I did it, you did it, like, because I was the most zombified person ever when I was younger, because I wasn't necessarily, I was raised the good old-fashioned American lifestyle, you sit down, you like you say, you drink your beer, you eat your crawfish, because I'm here in Louisiana, and you watch your football games till Sunday. That was me. Well, that was me and my family. But everybody can wake up. How do we de-zombify ourselves and get out of this problem that we're in?
Oh man, you just brought up the best point. A lot of people think, when they wake up to all this stuff, so many people are. It's been going on for about 5 years. Just all, with the internet, people are waking up all over the place. And a lot of people, I think, have this nagging idea in them, like, oh, I've already been ruined. There's not a whole lot of hope for me. I'll do my best, but I'm never what I could have been. I think a lot of people sort of way in the back of their mind have this idea, I've been fluoridated too much, and the education system has just taken over me. All this is false. Every single bit of it is false. And our bodies are made, let's take fluoride, for example, as another key ingredient to the TeleScreen world, making sure everybody's so stupid that, you know, all they can do have energy for after their day of working their minimum wage job is watch TV. But bodies are made to heal. Bodies are unfathomably miraculous, supernatural machines, which can do incredible things, and especially with consciousness can heal even better than the body. I mean, you can clean out your consciousness and bring it back to its original state in one day. I mean, my book, the Telementation, book about spiritual meditation and prayer, is all about how to do that. And I mean, you really can go, I mean, the inner part of you, your soul, which I already referred to earlier, is there. You can verify its existence with your own, you can experience it yourself. That's how you verify its existence. But you can't look outside, you know, at the telescreen and everything. You have to look inside yourself to find it. That's what, you know, Buddhist meditation is about. That's what a lot of prayer is about, partially doing. And the inner soul that we have has actually never been tampered with because it's untouchable. It's not even physical. But it is the engine and the basis of our consciousness. A lot of people say, oh, this is unscientific mumbo-jumbo. There's no soul. And I say, you know, people say, oh, there's just consciousness and we can measure that with, you know, computers in the university. And I say, oh, really? Can we? Now tell me what consciousness looks like then on a computer screen in the university lab. And they'll say, oh, it looks like, you know, you hook someone's brain, your head up to an electrode, you know, a bunch of electrodes and so forth, and, you know, do an EEG, and you can see fluctuations in the brain. And I say, oh, okay, so that's consciousness, huh? They'll say, yep. And I'll say, okay, so tell me where love is, because love is a piece of consciousness, or boredom, you know, two different kinds of feelings. Point to me where that is, and they'll say, well, I can't do that. And I'll say, wait a minute, I thought this was consciousness. Point it out to me. And they'll say, no, these are neurons, brain cells activating and non-activating. And I'll say, okay, wait a minute, I thought you were going to point out consciousness to me, not brain cells. And they'll say, oh, no, we can't. We only can point out brain cells. And I'll say, there you go. You don't know where consciousness has never been measured in the lab. We all know it exists. We can look inside of ourselves and see it within us now. It doesn't look like, we can feel our feelings, see our thoughts. They don't look like bricks or stones. They are non-physical things. We have direct evidence if we look inside ourselves that it is non-physical, it is spiritualized, and it can be healed to a dramatic degree. I mean, consciousness is ultra powerful. Think about the EEG example I just gave. Isn't it kind of funny how people want to measure? They say, oh, consciousness is in the brain, but if they want to measure it, they'll put electrodes on your head, which is outside the brain. So what they're saying is, if that is true, if that's where consciousness really was coming from, the neural activity, the electric fields that they're picking up on are outside. So they're actually trying to measure for consciousness outside the brain, which, you know, I thought the academics typically want to tell us it's not there. It's supposed to be inside. So, but anyways, that's not even conscious anyways, those neural firings. But the point is that all of us, there's so much hope that we all can have. We can get back to our original, you know, God-connected, incredibly powerful and spiritual and family-oriented selves right away. And there's no reason for us to think that we've been contaminated so much that we can't. That's just the trick, an Illuminati trick to think, you know, oh, you're so weak and, you know, you're just like the dopes on the sitcoms and people are silly and stupid and, you know, there's not much you can do except go to your minimum wage job. It's everything about that is a lie. We are actually some of the most powerful beings in this universe. Humans are. You know, there's extraterrestrials all over the place and stuff, but we are as powerful as them. We've got the huge brains. We have the capacity for space, you know, real space travel, not this fake, you know, space shuttle garbage. You know, they don't really go into space and that thing. They just go about 70 miles up. You know, so everybody just needs to understand that if you've ever heard anything that you should take seriously, it's this, that you can get back to your original uncontaminated, pre-Illuminati contamination state right now. You just have to know exactly what to do.
And we have to get in touch of who we are. We have to find the inner person that we really are. Because after I just got through reading your book, the TeleScreen, I read a short book. It's only, let me see here, it's only like 130 pages, I think, of Alan Watts, Become What You Are.
Oh, I've read that book.
And it's a very good book, very good book. And life, and he says life exists only at this very moment, and at this moment in infinite and eternal. For the present moment is infinitely small before we can measure it. It has gone, and yet it exists forever. You may believe yourself out of harmony with life and its eternal now, but you cannot be, for you are life and exist now. everybody's always worrying about, like, how much am I going to get paid on my next paycheck? Who's going to win the Super Bowl next year? Come on, the next year, you know, like everybody's worrying about other things than now. And I believe a major part of consciousness is now.
Well, the only thing that anybody has ever known to exist is called now. Okay, somebody tell me what the future or the past looks like. And somebody will say, oh, the past looks like, when the 9/11 towers fell or something. And they'll say, no, you're describing an event in the past that you're remembering in the present. I say, so you're just describing your memory now of something that once existed, an event that once existed but no longer does, so you're recollecting it in the present. So if you take this idea further, humans are kind of imprisoned because we sit here and look to the past and anticipate the future, but really those things don't even exist. What exists now, and if you want to control things, because our consciousnesses are powerful enough to do so, to control things, we have to do so from the present. And yeah, that's like Alan Watts and a lot of the Buddhist philosophers, that's what their whole program is to say, we need to downplay past and future a little bit and get to what exists, which is the now. And that's exactly what the Illuminati system wants us to not do. They want us to get all worried about the future and, oh no, Iran and all this other stuff, and worry about our, and then we humans also innately worry about our past, as if we could change it and so forth. So the whole point is that the real spiritualized consciousness just is existing right now. And if you want to attain peace and satisfaction in existing in a natural state, whether you like it or not, you're going to have to downplay your future anticipations and live in the present.
You have a subchapter in your book called, it's kind of like Alan Watts, Become What You Are. You have a subchapter called Do Not Know Thyself. Explain that a little bit.
Yeah, right. I can't remember exactly what page is that on.
Let me see. That's on
I think I remember roughly what it's about. It's about the basic nature of the TeleScreen world is that we are supposed to forget ourselves. If you go to a film, a popcorn munching film, people really, really like that because they can continuously just forget about their worries, forget about, even if you don't have any, you got plenty of money in the bank account and you're not getting, having to get sent over to Iraq and all this kind of stuff. Even if you don't have many of the typical things to worry about, people still like to go to sit in front of the telescreen so they can forget everything. And what they're really forgetting then is themselves. Okay, when you watch a telescreen, you get so absorbed in what's outside of you that you actually can completely eliminate any awareness of you. Okay, so that's what people get addicted to in many senses with the telescreen world. And the reason they do that is because consciousness is deformed and despiritualized, as we've said. But what does that mean? To be deformed and despiritualized is to be in pain. So in the Buddhist sense, humans in the earth prison in the United States of America are people that are hurting, that are suffering. When you don't have knowledge, when you don't have contentment, when you feel lost and overworked and can't even connect with your children, you're filled with regret and so forth, I could go on and on and on. A lot of people say, oh, no, that's not me. And I say, really, look a little bit deeper into yourself. We've all are hurt by this system. We all are damaged and have pains from, being raised in a system which is not conducive to what we really are. It's like trying to raise a monkey, living in a tadpole pond or something. The thing is out of its natural environment. That's all of us here in America. So our consciousnesses are hurt. So what we want to do then, you grow up with this pain, consciousness that's in pain, and we mostly put it out of our minds. That's why a lot of people have trouble doing Buddhist meditation, for example, or even intensive Christian prayer, because of what it requires them is to look in at themselves. And the first thing a lot of people see is a whole bunch of pain and suffering that they've been putting out, sort of looking away from, so they don't have to, which has been created by the culture and their system and their upbringing and so forth. And so what people want to do, an addiction is the perfect thing to deliver to this huge mass of, hundreds of millions of people in America with this hurt consciousnesses. So if you give them an addiction where they can totally forget that and totally be so absorbed in it that they won't even know that hurt personality and inner pain consciousness is there, they will just drink it up like the biggest sponge you've ever seen. And that's exactly what we see going on all over the place. You see people go to work, say, oh, I got to get home. I need to, I want to just sit in front of the TV. And people are just dying to get home all day at work. I mean, part of it is because their jobs probably are, in most cases, are just absolutely unfulfilling and despiritualizing. But, people just have to, you can see people's jitteriness and nervousness and stuff when they start thinking about, I need to get home and get my feet up and get the six-pack and watch TV. They act like an addicted person, and they have symptoms of addiction because they can't focus on anything but it, and they get jittery and nervous. I mean, if you look at a crack addict or something who's trying to get a little bit of money, steal some money or something to get some crack, they're nervous, they're kind of shaky, and and not, you can tell there's total no rationalism or reason in their consciousness. They're just focused on the goal, whatever it takes. Now, to a much smaller degree, that's what humans are. I mean, if you go to Slave Mart this weekend, and you'll see actually do it on a weeknight. And you'll see a lot of people, rushing around. You can see they're jittery and nervous and so forth. And so, then the answer, obviously, well, yeah, it's after work and they're trying to get home. But if you ask each one of those persons, what are you going to do when you get home? Because you seem pretty much in a hurry to get home. 9 out of 10 of them are going to say, well, my favorite TV show's on. Okay, so what they're in a hurry to get home for is not the kids or something, but it's some stupid TV show. So yeah, the whole point of the Illuminati culture is to not know yourself, which is this incredibly powerful. And people don't even have any idea how powerful our inner soul is. I mean, it says in Genesis 1:26, we are created in God's image. I mean, that's how powerful it is, okay? And so the whole point of the Illuminati culture is to make sure you don't know that, to put the person in pain and give them an addiction to forget about that. So that's one aspect of this do not know thyself issue.
I want to talk a little bit about, well, we have been talking about the ego, but I sort of classify it as hate, jealousy, selfishness, and many others, and there's many others out there, but mostly I classify it as hate, jealousy, selfishness, but the two main ones that I think that we have a problem with, and this is what I believe why the world is going in the direction it's going, is because I find that greed and competition is the main focal point of destruction as a society. Like, it seems like greed and competition, we always have to choose. Like, just like Walmart or Kmart, like which television show you going to watch? What team are you going to choose or pick? Like, you like that team? Come on, or instead of what video games you want to watch? Why is there always got to be something that we have to choose? Because it seems like competition like that. On a sub level like we use it, we choose either Walmart or Kmart, whatever. But the elite, the people that have upper powers, they use competition as what country are we going to take over and stuff like that.
Yeah.
There's always competition and greed in any kind of level. The sub levels like we're in, and upper levels like in the political powers of the elite.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's very beautifully put. How you just said that. When I say little things have been put into us, that we don't realize. A lot of people, in the conspiracy culture, are worried about, this, that, and all these issues. We need to wake them all up to, 9/11 is an inside job and all this kind of stuff. And yeah, that's great. But clearly the Illuminati masters are not threatened by that. They don't care. Wake up as many people as you want. I think they may even want that to be the case. But the real issue is go a little bit deeper, go further into our past. That's more of a I mean, I hate to say it, I don't want to downplay the importance of knowing, the truth about something like 9/11, but go back further, go deeper. I mean, what about all these little ideas we've had programmed into our consciousness? When we're hijacked by the school system and put into the schools. I mean, what do they teach you? They teach you competition. I mean, I don't know how schools are now. When I went to school, it was always right at the beginning, first grade. I can remember, the spelling contest, everybody's scores are compared, and some people do really well, and they get an ego complex, not in the sense of the psychological sense of ego, but just they become egotistical. And then other children who didn't do good, they will sit there in their desks and feel bad about themselves. I mean, you are building, just right there, bam, you are building the most incredible, animositous, petty, psychologically hurt culture there is. When you're a little child, this stuff is trauma. This can imprint you for life, okay? I mean, especially if it happens daily. Now, a lot of people will say, oh, yeah, we have to have competition because that's to do with capitalism and so forth. And I've actually, I can see some of that, but I've backed away from that quite a bit in recent years. And I really am aligning myself with the idea of Native American Indian cultures and so forth now and in the past, and where a lot of this stuff was just not present. I mean, there was no, you're going to strive to become a computer engineer, so you have to compete with everybody else to get into Penn State to get your, your master's degree in computer engineering. So the whole point is that everybody else is a problem for you. No, the whole idea of an American Indian culture is, no, we're going to exist now, and the point is to take in the natural environment around us, open sky and trees and birds and so forth, and you'll become what you already are deep inside, and it's just a natural process, and there's no performance to live up to. You don't have to prove yourself other than, with proving yourself in spiritual ways with vision quests and shamanic exercises and so forth, which everybody is naturally inclined to being quite successful at. That's what we're built, spiritual practices like that are what we're all about. So, but yeah, the whole idea of competition is, if you want to know what's important to the Illuminati system, go and look at what they're training the little children to be thinking, deeply and psychologically from early on. Here's another one for you. There's that stupid movie coming out by M. Night Shyamalan or whatever. I forgot the name of it. Airbender or something. So everybody's going to freak out and go crazy about that. So the point is that it's just like, now I like the Star Wars movies quite a bit, but the same problem exists in those as well. It shows the enlightened beings. When I say enlightened, I mean in a really positive sense. The spirit. Sort of like St. Paul on the road to Damascus. Feeling and experiencing and talking to the light of God that's everywhere, and being obviously dramatically transformed forever by that. So it shows the enlightened beings as being warmongering, greedy, like you just said, competitive, greedy, warmongering idiots. And that is the biggest, I think it's not true. I think the extraterrestrials that dominate our galaxy are not like that. I think they are spiritualized. You can see when you look out all over the galaxy, and like if you take, here's a guest, I don't know if you've had, I've been watching your show pretty carefully. I don't know if you've had Paul Laviolette on, though. You might like him to discuss pulsars. I've been plugging, sorry?
I've been trying to get him on, but I haven't had any replies yet.
Yeah, he is. I've been plugging his book, Decoding the Message of the Pulsars, everywhere. That's the book that has the real proof of extraterrestrial civilizations all over our galaxies. It's written into the pulsars, these flashing lights there in the galaxy all over that have specific codes within them. And the way they have oriented them around the galaxy is with the golden ratio. Okay, now that's specifically the pattern and the mathematical code that God has written into the cosmos everywhere. It's written into our bodies, sunflowers, galaxies, everything. It's absolutely everywhere. The academics won't talk about it. And here the extraterrestrials that have built the pulsars all around the galaxy have used that specific coding to create their navigating system or whatever the pulsars are for in the galaxy. Now, the Illuminati has used it a little bit as well, the golden ratio, the specific mathematical formula in some of their events, but it's really heavily downplayed. They use more like an 11 system, like 9/11, 7/11, 44, all kinds of different numerological codings like that. So, and usually when they use the intelligent designers specific technologies, they're just using it to hurt people, as Len Horowitz often says. But yeah, that's a wonderful point you bring up. I mean, people are taught from very, very young that the natural mode of life is, to feel kind of downgraded, and the system can put you down. That's okay. That's normal, and we can hate each other and compete, and this is normal for us to all compete. It's so different from something like the American Indian cultures, because like I said, I've got a degree in anthropology. I specialized in studying hunter-gatherers. That's all I did for 4 years, was just study hunter-gatherer cultures, and it just so dramatically changed everything I thought about anything, because it's just such a totally different consciousness that they have built into them than we have in ours. Theirs is a spiritualized, shamanistic, wonderful consciousness, and ours is incredibly, a lot of people say, no, they had war and so forth. Yes, they did. They didn't have atomic bombs and everybody hating each other all the time. If you think that primitive cultures or a culture like the American Indians, that they have built into them constant hate and so forth, at least especially before they were invaded by the white European cultures and so forth, if you think that they are filled with all this spite and pettiness and hate that we just naturally have in our day-to-day sentences and interactions we have with each other, you are dead wrong. All you need to do is pick up ethnographic studies from anthropologists who went and studied these peoples right at their time of contact before, and you'll see the anthropologists baffled, can't even understand, whole systems without a word for hate in their language, whole groups of hundreds of thousands of people in Borneo which don't even have a word for rape in their whole language. It's just so incredibly different from what we understand, and that's what I am reorienting my life towards, and I'm influencing my radio listeners with that. I'm imbuing everybody with this different new type of consciousness, and I went under some pretty major attacks. I don't think it was because of this. I think it was because of some things I've reported about the Gulf of Mexico, as I was talking to you about in email. But I mean, the whole radio show is a direct attack on the Illuminati system, and just about building our whole, I mean, I'm talking about my radio show, the Antimatter radio show. It's just all about building us to being what we are, never really stopped being. It's what we really are deep inside. We've just been forgotten because of our lives of addiction in the TeleScreen world.
Exactly, and another part of the ego is, of course, good and bad, or good and evil.
Yes.
There's always got to be two of those, and I don't believe necessarily that this egotistic duality of humanity has always been a part of us, because I don't think, just like you said a while ago, I don't believe other civilizations out there in the universe, I don't believe they even know, possibly maybe some, but I doubt all of them even know what good and evil is. That they just are. If you go outside and you see maybe I didn't explain that perfectly, but if you go outside and you see a butterfly,
no, that's pretty good.
That butterfly is just going to be flying around, and that butterfly. I've never seen a butterfly fight something else. It maybe it does, but I've never seen that butterfly just go start attacking you. You might see a dog attack something, or other animals, or snakes and human beings, but I think other civilizations out there in the universe are possibly just like that butterfly. That they're beautiful. They are just there. They're just consciousness. They're flying around.
Oh, sorry about that. I didn't mean to interrupt. I've got to take a zebra being ripped apart by a lion. Take that example. I've got in my film Illuminati Are the Nephilim, at the very end, if you've gone through 3 hours of this grueling analysis of this horrific Earth concentration camp prison that we live in, then I go to this, these 2 chapters called Solutions, and then it's really all just a poetic, artistic film, those last 2 chapters, on what we're supposed to do about this predicament we find ourselves in. And what I do is there's some philosophical messages in there. There's a Hopi shaman discussing a number of things. And right after he says, he just makes this incredible point. Probably some of your listeners have seen this clip. It's a very famous clip. And he says that all there is the spirit. He says the spirit world is what is ultimately real, and he says the spirit world is everything. And then as soon as he says that, I cut to another scene. Purposely, every single scene in that film is so carefully thought out and so forth. But I purposely cut to this next scene of a lion in slow motion, just the most beautiful sight I have ever seen in my life. A lion running, and then you find out what the lion's running after is a zebra, and then jumps on its back, takes it down, and proceeds to eat it. Now, what I have playing in the background is a part of an opera from Vivaldi, where the lyrics are discussing spiritus, which I think is Latin for something to do with spirit. Now, the point is that the whole idea of good and evil really only does exist within the shallow level of human consciousness. The world of nature really does not involve good and evil. When a lion eats a zebra, there's something, if any of you have experienced, this is something I've been discussing in huge detail on my radio show this week for a number of reasons. If somebody's experienced a death of a very, very close loved one, often with that person in there's few sadnesses more intense than when you really genuinely love someone or something, like a pet or a friend or a parent or whatever, and you lose them. There are few sadnesses more abysmal than that. But a lot of people will experience such deep sadness that they will actually break through to a different level of consciousness where good and evil just don't make any sense anymore. And you'll ask the person, if you can get them to talk, and they're, probably semi-catatonic sadness, say, how do you feel? And they may say weird things. Well, not weird. They're actually weird from our ego perspective, but they'll say things like, I don't know, everything just feels right for some reason. I know that my loved one is okay, and this was supposed to happen for some reason. It's all of a sudden like people in this post-death trauma become these super philosophers, and it's like, how did that happen? So our whole idea of life and death really is part of a higher order. The word is sublime. When something is sublime, it's beyond good and evil. That's actually how the whole world of nature and ourselves actually is. Good and evil is just really something for, little petty warmongering creatures. When you live at the egotistical level, which is just the personality, this, like you said, greedy, hate-filled, spiteful, little scared, and, desirous personality. That's what the ego is. That's where good and evil comes from, the ideas of good and evil. That's the only place it exists anywhere. And that's the consciousness that creates war and poverty and starvation. It aligns with the Illuminati dark masters and all this kind of stuff. You get outside of that, none of those things emerge from a person, like war and all this, hurting other people and so forth, and all this cruel, just little interactions people have from day to day with each other are just little pieces of spite. Just watch people talk to each other, little put-downs that, real subtle put-downs that people have. This is the way we are. But you get us out of the egotistical domain, and what we go to then is our soul level. If you get rid of the egotistical domain, our soul is directly connected to God, and we become content, filled with, people don't even understand what I'm talking about probably right now. You just become filled with unbelievable compassion and love. Just all of a sudden you just start loving everybody. And it's like, what is this all about? I just want peace, and I just want to go out and help everybody and do all these things just to express my love for everybody. And it's this incredible beauty just emits forth, and then you find that the whole world of nature actually is emitting deep within the leaves, deep within the bones of the lion, deep within the bark of the forest is something created all this stuff. And there's this incredible energy and light and happiness and love and intelligence that is it's this one big intelligence behind everything that is inside of everything, creating everything. Of course, the name I give it is God. But when you get out of the ego domain, you get to this level and you just experience this incredible, you realize that everything is exactly as it should be. It's perfect. The lion eating the zebra is not good or evil. It's just how a mathematically ordered, intelligent universe is operating. So, then the butterfly, on the other hand, it doesn't eat things, and it's just unfathomably beautiful, and nobody can even describe it because it's so touching and stunning and glory. It just, there's just like a chorus of glory just absolutely radiating in a deafening silence from a butterfly, and you have to be out of the egotistical consciousness to understand the poetics of this. But it's just the whole idea of good and evil. You're totally right. People get so wound up in this, but it actually doesn't even exist except in the fake egotistical personality consciousness, which is not even us. It's a telescreen consciousness.
Yeah, I believe just the good and evil state, this ego that we have, I believe, just like you said, I believe it's here on earth, because I don't necessarily believe it's just, like somebody in the chat room, he's a buddy of mine, he's a member of my site, he said, light and dark, it's all balanced, the natural state of things. I hate to say it, buddy, but I don't think so, because I don't think it's, maybe the natural state of things here on Earth, I don't know, but I don't think it's the natural state of everything, like in the cosmos, because I believe we created this. David Icke calls it, I believe, the schism, I think. I believe we created this good and evil side of us, because I believe the natural state of us is pure consciousness, just like that butterfly is. It's beautiful. It looks loving. I believe that's the pure state of us.
Yeah, it's really become fashionable for some reason for people to say. By the way, I am in total agreement with you, interestingly. But yeah, it's become fashionable for people to say, oh, we have, you need the dark times and you need the dark. And I've even heard people say, my friend Big John Lipscomb, great guy, wonderful, doing wonderful work, but he has a philosophy which he and I have talked on air how we disagree. He says, you need the dark side for certain things, and I say, prove it. You do not need it. It's totally. The only real darkness that exists is the Nephilim Illuminati system, and I think they are I actually discuss in huge detail in my radio shows and in my film, The Illuminati Are the Nephilim, that they have actually created our ego consciousness, and it's not just a product of the fall written about in the Bible and so forth. But yeah, for some reason people, we do, certain things can happen to us that can make us grow, certain things that are painful. Yeah, that's not what I'm talking about right now. That's all fine and wonderful. I'm talking about how, for some reason people think that the cosmos is a light and a dark that is balancing, and I say I haven't seen that. Somebody point to that for me so I can see what you mean. Because if you can't, it's just an idea, and I think the idea is wrong. Because when I look at the cosmos, when I do my daily meditation and prayer, it is just exploding with glory and love and light everywhere. Whether it's the lion eating the zebra, or the flower opening in the morning, or whatever, and we've just been clouded to think it's not there. The only darkness is the Illuminati masters, and they're really, at our deepest level of our humanity, they can't even do anything to us. The only way they can do anything to us is if they trick us into being dumbed down TeleScreen morons.
I don't mean to interrupt you, but the same guy that I quoted from in the chat room, he also said he brings a good question. How do we know how lovely a butterfly is without ugliness? That's a good question.
Okay, that is a wonderful question, and that's a good sort of a good Buddhist question as well. I don't agree with that, though. I do think in the natural state, things exhibit, to specifically answer the question, they exhibit a light of heaven within inside of them. Every single cell of any animal or bug or butterfly or any single piece of air has deep within it a radiating creative light, which I call God. It's not identical to the thing. It's what's inside of it creating it. And that's what I call beauty. And so you don't need to feel and witness that. If I define that as beauty, I don't need to have a concept of ugliness to compare it to. If you have beauty on more of a surfacey level, I'm not saying your friend is surfacey. It doesn't sound like he is at all. But I'm just saying for the average person, that thing is beautiful. You go to the art museum. I think that one's beautiful. I think that one's ugly. I think that one's beautiful. That one's ugly. That's more of a surface level, egotistical idea of beauty. I'm talking about the deep metaphysical joy, where you find everything is just an emanation from God, and that's what I'm talking about, is the pure beauty. So at the surfacey level, though, your friend is totally right. I mean, you do have to have ugliness to compare it to, but I'm talking deeper.
Yeah, exactly. And he also said, how do we know the Illuminati are bad without knowing what good is? And it's the same scenario. But the only thing I can say is, if you want to know, just like you said, because I understand that you're practicing Buddhism and the Zen part of, but the thing is, I am too. I'm starting to buy a lot of Alan Watts books. Best which I can say for the member in the chat room is go buy some Alan Watts books. One I just got through reading is Become What You Are, and it's hard to explain on an hour radio show, but just go buy some of his books, and also buy the TeleScreen book. He explains a lot of the psychological parts of our consciousness and of our schisms that in his TeleScreen book, and go buy it. But he brought some really good questions about. But something else that I wanted to explain a while ago when we're talking about CNN and Fox News. I'm getting off subject from the butterfly thing now, but
that was good though.
Yeah, it was. And you explain in your book, the TeleScreen, the drip method. Explain how the media, you call it quackademia, and all of the other aspects out there, they constantly give us this constant, steady drip method.
I can't remember what page is that. I've forgotten. Is that where they slowly just give us little bits of propaganda over and over and over through time? Yeah. What they do is they're very, very in control. Okay, I hate to say it. A lot of people want to say, "Oh, we're taking over." We're not. Okay, we're so far from it. They're having fun, and we're slaving away.
David Icke also talks about the drip method also.
Okay. It's where they have infinite patience, and what they'll do is just keep a person's consciousness right where it needs to be, with making sure that everybody thinks that the real battle is, let's fight the banks. Now you see CNN and so forth, the banks, and BP, and this and that. But the real issues are deeper with our the way our consciousness has been structured. But they just keep us right where they want us to be by feeding little pieces of information that get us all riled up at the egotistical level, and we're just so endlessly allured because we're always ready for the fight. I don't know if that I actually wrote the TeleScreen about 3 years ago. I don't remember exactly what page you on with the drift method.
I can't remember, but it's you pretty much explained it. It's just the media, how they constantly give us this drip feed of information, and because I probably should have explained it better for you, Jeff, but how you explained it in the book is with the drip method. You know what it reminded me of? it so remind me of when you're in school. You know, when you're elementary and into the K through 12 grades, sometimes we did the word passing game. Remember how everybody in the class would get into into a line, and the teacher would tell the first person in the line something, a word, good, or like love, and then by the time it gets passed, every time you whisper it in the other person's ear.
Oh yeah.
And then by the time it gets to the end of the line, it's something else other than love. It's bizarre, and that's kind of how I believe the media and crocodemia, as you call it, has been doing this. They've been doing this drip method to us because if you think about it, everybody doesn't remember everything they learn in college. Everybody doesn't remember everything that they learn from reading books. Most people remember stuff that they are being told to in the local bar or the restaurant or whoever, some regular Joe on the street. Like they say that let's say the Colts won the Super Bowl. The Colts won the Super Bowl, and then they're like, they did? Dang, I wish I could have watched it. For that instant, they believe that the Colts won the Super Bowl, but in reality, the Saints won the Super Bowl. See what I'm saying here? It's like we believe this false reality that we believe is true.
Yeah, I remember exactly what you're talking about. Yeah, the definition of brainwashing is to teach someone that the false reality is the true reality, and that's exactly anything from weapons of mass destruction to, now with the Gulf, and I've got an interesting take on the Gulf, which I've had to move off YouTube, and it's only covered on my website now. And, at 9/11, everything is a lie everywhere, and, yeah, the whole idea is to make sure everybody never figures out the truth. And there's experiments that are done where you can tell certain people certain things, and then and have them all talk about it, and then a month later come back and ask all the same people, what were you talking about, and then they'll tell you, and it's totally different than you playing back a videotape of what they were talking about a month ago, and they can't believe it changed so much. They were so sure that they had it right, and they didn't. So at the surface, poor level of consciousness, we are not, until we get to our more super intelligent inner consciousness, we are lost. And that's why, Prozac Nation, we feel so lost and so forth, because we can't even think, and that's all by design, and it's a perfect scenario for the Illuminati Masters. Well, the book, that's a book that I've written that was just published, about 6 months ago. And it's published by the same publisher, Progressive Press, who published my first book, Corporatism, Secret Government of the New World Order. And it's really it was a chapter in the book Corporatism, but it got so huge, it was almost the size of its own book. So I just made a real short summary of it and put it in Corporatism and then expanded it out to its own book. And people are a little bit happier than I expected, or than I thought that it would be. The book is really just on one topic, just the destruction of consciousness. And so it's not like corporatism, which is, all over the place, talking about chemtrails 1 minute and concentration camps the next minute and so forth. But the TeleScreen is, it's the idea of what a TeleScreen is comes from Orwell. That's from Orwell's book, 1984, where everybody is walking around and there are TVs talking to them that can talk, and they can talk back to them. It's sort of like a phone TV, and they call them telescreens. And these things are being utterly invaded at all times, so that means ourselves are being utterly invaded at all times. And people don't even know this. They think is there a new world order that's invading us, and are we under attack? I mean, give me a break. Nobody can even think straight. We don't even have our humanity, and our souls are totally hijacked by all these crazy ways we act and so forth, with coming home from work and just sitting in front of ESPN for 6 hours with beer. I mean, we're half conscious, Just imagine people sitting on their couches drooling and so forth, and then we go back to our jobs that we don't even, they despiritualize us every day, and it's just an amazing phenomenon. It's all run by this telescreen world where there's TVs everywhere, inundating consciousness. It's radio, it's billboards, it's film, cinema, magazines, even books these days are just, everything is just this streamlined information. Even at church, like one of these big money churches, which is not really a church in the biblical sense. It's just a big propaganda mill, and somebody, some rich minister up there, gay marriage, so there's a little variation, so it seems like there's differences, but really that's all just, completely ridiculous. I give all these examples in my book the TeleScreen about how there aren't variations. I mean, I say, when's the last time you heard people in church or on the mass media or something question all these ideas? They've got a big, long list of them, So it's really a way, the TeleScreen is a way of capturing, invading, capturing, and hijacking everybody's consciousness to make sure it just is consumed with certain streamlined bits of information, all while nobody knows this is happening. And then the churches agree, that the universities agree, and everybody agrees, and so then everybody goes to work and they talk about all the same things that they all agree on. So just like in Orwell's book, everybody is told a lie over and over, and then they go around and tell each other the lie, so nobody knows that the lie is not even the truth. So that is our world right now. This is just an introduction to the idea. It's a very detailed concept. It goes far deeper than I think hardly anybody imagines. And that's what I discuss in the book, The TeleScreen. I mean, your inner consciousness is being invaded right as we speak on this, this very day, when you just walk around all over the place interpreting the whole Bible and leaving out key verses like Colossians 3:11 or Genesis 1:26 or something, or Genesis 2:7, which has now become my favorite verse in the whole Bible. So, I mean, this function of a church basically is just to agree with everything that's on TV. And what's on TV is basically, a lot of people think, it's all this different information. But no, it's really one streamlined message that war is okay, that history is filled with chaos and madness and hell, for people, and murder. And that's what people really, so I mean, we get the idea in our heads, that's what we kind of really are. That's the way people are. So if we want to go and slaughter children in Pakistan or Iraq or something, well, that's just kind of normal. And if we pay for it with our tax dollars, well, that's just what's always happened. So I can go back to watching my ESPN right now and not worry about it. So, I mean, we get all these ideologies pumped into us, and the churches totally agree with it. So they, for all intents and purposes, function like a telescreen. And what happens is everybody goes around, they hear all these ideas, the same ideas on, there's little variations. Like some people are, pro-gay, and some people are against monitor everybody and entertain everybody and keep everybody from being able to think, because they're always thinking, the telescreen's always pumping out information loudly, like freedom is slavery. And so, all these little mantras and so forth. So nobody can really think because they always have their thoughts imbued with all this propagandistic information. And so what I've tried to do in this book is basically show how that's exactly what our culture is. Now, it's, a lot of people say, no, that doesn't make sense. We don't have televisions that talk back and all this kind of stuff. Yeah, there are variations, but for example, I was just at the post office mailing off some DVDs and so forth to customers, and they, I'm in the post office and there's a TV in there, playing CNN. So, I mean, I can't just sit there with my daughter and talk to her, just think our own thoughts and talk about whatever we want to talk about. No, we've got to sit here and try to tune out this horrible, pathetic CNN playing TV. And we, so our thoughts aren't, it's literally an invasion. I mean, our thoughts are what we are, our consciousness and our feelings, and the deep spiritual core of our thoughts and feelings is called our soul, right at the base of all that.